Welcome to Martini Time. Today is Monday. It's Rotary Day, which means my wife goes to Rotary and I go get some chicken dinner. So tonight's chicken night, and I'm out. I'm on my own, and I thought I would talk about this old house this evening. Those of you that live in Southside Virginia know where I am, and I live on South Main Street, which is the street that goes through Blackstone. It's a little one-street town, but it's got 4 or 5 blocks of turn-of-the-century buildings, so it's very well kept as a turn-of-the-century Southside Virginia town. It was originally a tobacco town, and the families here go back to land grants from the King of England. And the house I live in was built, it's a kind of a big old Victorian house. It was built in 1903. And this is the front of the house. Of course, there's no place like home. But my wife, this was 1943, and that's my wife in 1943. She grew up here, and I photoshopped her in here. She still likes to ride a bike around town. So she grew up here, and then she went to Longwood, and then met me. I was a sailor in the submarines stationed in Norfolk, and then when we got married, we went off on our journey, and in 1980. We sold everything in Cleveland and went to India, to Ganeshpuri, and then we came here temporarily to this old house. And for a few years we lived up the road in another smaller house that was part of her family. But when her mother got sick and ill and needed some help, nursing home or help at home, we moved in. And I think that was in 1996. And then when she died, we took over the house and it became ours. So this has really been a remarkable house because it's had many many lifetimes, reincarnations. Back in World War II, it was like a little homestead. It has a large block that goes through to another street in the back. And they had a cow and chickens and goat and rabbits and a big garden. And it was a self-sustaining little homestead. And eggs and milk, and then they would trade the eggs and milk for other things. And then my wife's family lived here, and they would kill a hog, and everybody would get some hog. And there was a self-sustaining, and Blackstone was a self-sustaining community. Whatever you needed, you could get in Blackstone. And the house during World War II was a rooming house because there's a Fort Pickett nearby, and that was built in during the war, and all these soldiers and families came here. And so if you had a chicken coop, you rented it out during World War II. And so I think there were all the rooms were filled up here. And my wife and she had 2 brothers and a sister, and they all doubled up. And the upstairs rooms were all rented out, and then when my wife's mother died, when my wife's father died in the 50s, I believe he died young, and her mother went to work for the state police, and then she was transferred to Norfolk, so she sold the house. And then when she retired, she came back to Blackstone. And the house was for sale again, so she bought it back. And so this house has been a great mother to me, because anything we wanted to do, the mother said, "Oh, I have a space for you. I've got a room for you. I've got space for you to be what you want to be." And that's kind of like, we've repainted most of the rooms, had the yard landscaped, and the house is looking pretty good. There's still a few rooms that need work, and we have a little shop upstairs. That's my wife's shop room where everything is piled up. I don't go in there. I have my meditation room and my books, and then we have an office, and then we have a living room and a big dining room, and a kitchen, and so it is a. It's ironic for me because I grew up in a Navy family, and we always rented. I never lived in a home that was owned, or a family home, and I never had schoolmates because I moved every 2 years. And when I met my wife, I was amazed that she still had friends with her people she went to kindergarten with. I couldn't compute that. And when I used to come up here as a sailor to visit her, and I had a birthday, and she had a birthday party for me. I'd never had a birthday party. Oh, well, I think I had one when I was 4 years old. But that's the only one I remember. And actually, I don't remember much about that. I just remember a cake. But I don't really, that was really something for me to have, particularly when I'm old enough to remember it, So this whole house has been, and it's also a home tree for the family. So every Thanksgiving, they all come to the home tree, maybe 20 to 30 people. And we fill up the dining room and the living room with these big tables, and they all bring food. And so the house just takes them all in. You just will take care of anything. And the ceilings are high. And, when I go in a modern house, you feel a little claustrophobic, a little bit closed in, but this house kind of breathes, it has space, and room. And and I'm always surprised when my wife will say, we're talking about something, she says, oh, well, I remember when my father put that in, or when my father fixed that, So the old house was you saved everything. So you had everything. You didn't throw away anything, because you always, if you had to fix something, you had to use junk from something else. Everybody lived like MacGyver, so you always had saved stuff. So when you had to fix something, you could use junk lying around to fix it, you see. I always grew up in my family always kept the bags packed because you never know when they were going to move again. So you didn't have space to save anything. But here, so that's always a constant game with my wife and I. My tendency is to throw stuff out, and hers is to save it, So I have diarrhea and she's constipated. Joking. But so this whole house has been a photography studio. We're in the big dining room. I turned it into a photography studio. Before that, we had a stained glass studio. Then it was a photography studio. And then I got the yoga bug, and I wanted to open up a yoga studio. So I turned the dining room into a yoga studio, took everything out, put a rug down. And then if somebody came in for a picture, I would roll out the lights, drop the canvas, and have a picture. So people would come. It was kind of like a schizophrenic house. Do you want a stretch or a picture? So when so we never had any dining room furniture. So when my uncle died, when my uncle came to live with us in 2013, we closed out his house in Tampa and brought all his furniture here. And so now I stopped being a yoga teacher, and we just became civilized and had dinner. Have a nice dining room table, and dinner parties, and so that was kind of like the end of my. It was the end of my vegetarianism too. My uncle came, who was three meals a day fella, and so we were kind of like, it was kind of like Downton Abbey when he was here. He was paralyzed, had a stroke, and couldn't walk, so he was in a wheelchair. So we would it'd be breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 3 meals a day, and we'd prepare the meal, and he had somebody here to help him during the day, and they would bring him in, and I would put a towel over my arm, like a waiter, and they'd say, "Oh, we have a great dinner for you tonight, Mr. Ewer. We have such and such." He'd laugh, and the master would sit down, and we'd have dinner. And that's where we started having our Friday night dinner parties, because we wanted people to come over so we could meet them. So we began to have these Friday night dinner parties for 8, and we did that for about 4 years, I think. And now we just have dessert parties and movies. But anyway, his furniture transformed the house. Now we have carries out the colors theme, carries out the furniture theme. Like it's all early American furniture, because he had a lot of nice early American furniture that, say cupboards and all kinds of different things that we'd never buy. You don't buy that stuff anymore, pretty much. All these corner tables and buffets and things that hold your dishes and all that, you see. We would never have bought that. So anyway, we got it, and it really transformed the house. And so the meat went when we were having to fix meat for him, and it just got to be a drag, And then I went to a dinner party once, and the lady hostess served this chicken dinner. She was so proud of it, and I said, "Oh, I'm vegetarian." And I remember the look on her face, And I said, "Oh, the hell with it! Give me the chicken." And so anyway, we the whole yoga, the whole thing just kind of dropped off, and it's been good. And then he left his martini glass collection, and I became a martini priest, as you know, and ordained, and now I serve communion at 5 o'clock, which I have invited you to attend, and as you know, I continue speaking my word from this big old house here on South Main Street. And I think if you look, there's a lot of my uncle around here. I don't know if you can see that. You see that up there? All those pictures of his dog. See that? Whoop. Anyway, he had a dog named Faust, and the dog would pose. He was a photographer, and he could put that dog in any position and take a picture of it, and even got in the newspaper with it, And this was his claim to fame. As you can see, this is a picture of, see up here, that's the picture of Kennedy passing his studio, the Tommy Ewer studio. And he set up a tripod and waited and waited and waited for Kennedy to pass, because that was his last parade before he went to Dallas, and that was the car he was in when he went to Dallas. So that was his. He got that in the newspaper, and so that was the last. That's really a classic picture historically, because it was. That was the last ride of JFK. So my uncle really did transform this house because of his influx of furniture and the landscaping, and it was the end of my basic desire to turn it into a big Blackstone yoga center and have people come. You see, I was a yoga teacher here, like the Maytag repairman. I had everything set up. I had the cushions, and I had the mats and everything. And I taught a few classes, but then the population's pretty thin here, so it kind of like dried up, So I had a yoga studio, but nobody came, and that's fine. And so I had a photography studio here. And so when during the recession, the weddings dried up, and just everything, just dried up. It was a combination of things. the digital revolution, the recession, people that had any money around here. And so if you're going to cut, the first thing you do is cut an expensive photographer, take the pictures yourself. And so anyway, the wedding business dried up, and that's been great. That's opened up for new avenues of my evolution. And so it's been good that the yoga dried up and I stopped trying to be a yoga teacher, and I stopped trying to be, and stop having to be a wedding photographer, and I just do what comes in the door. And so this house has been, well, it's really, it's hard to describe because it's both a physical place and a metaphorical place. It's a place where, and I think, I look back on my life and I think it was right in 1987, around 1987, up until 1980, 1987, those 7 years, I tried with all my might to leave Blackstone because my life was somewhere else. And so it was a Mr. Toad's wild ride, I'm telling you. It really was. And so something stabilized, and I got a job writing for the Courier Record, and I realized that I was not going to move anymore. This was it. That I was going to sit here, like Buddha under the Bodhi tree. I was going to sit here. No more moving around. No more looking over the horizon. I can't be any place better than this, you see. And so there was that, And then with the end of my yoga teaching, again, the same thing happened. I'm just going to sit here, and I'm not going to try to create myself better than I am. I'm not going to be, I don't have to be different. I don't have to be anything. I don't have to be a yoga teacher. I don't have to be a teacher. I don't have to be anything. I'm okay as I am. So there's this sense of ending the quest, ending the seeking, ending the trying and the effort, ending the need to be approved of, ending the need to be popular and liked, ending the need, period, you see. I can just be here. It's okay. That feeling of being okay. And that's that's what a home, the feeling a home should give you. This is where you are. This is okay. And this is where you belong, you see. So the house has many rooms, and the house has many dimensions of our psyche, you see. When the Buddha was enlightened, he said, I see you, house builder. I see the house builder who has built my ego, myself. And I see who you are, and you will not build that house again. Because when you see the house builder, you don't have to keep building onto your life and getting, you're okay. This is where you are. This moment is your house. This place where you are right now is your home. You see, so the old home is kind of like that too. It's old, but it's new. It's got a lot of age on it, but it's got many lives, many reincarnations, many to go. Who knows how many lives this old house will have, you see. So anyway, I'll leave you with that. This was just a little reminiscing on my part about this old house. So thanks for dropping in.